So lovely to see familiar and new faces. Hello, dear Linda. Hi, Philip. Hi, Fab. Hi. Hello, Stuart. Good to see you. Hi, Anthony. Welcome, everyone, from all over, it seems. North, south, west. Hi. Hi, Sue. I can't see you, but I know you're there. Hello, Barry, Melissa, Linda, Chris.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. We're going to start in exactly 2 minutes. That's what's left of the song that reminds us about a wonderful life. And perhaps in the chat, if you'd like to share where you're dialing in from. Philip, you look like you're at a beautiful cricket patch. Maybe pop into the chat where you're dialing in from on this lovely Sunday morning for some, afternoon for some. And thank you, Heather, who's here from Panama, supporting me, letting people in. Thank you. Stuart's from New York, and we have Switzerland. Michael's in London. I'm just outside of London too. Oh, we have a nice Swiss representative. That's great. I know there's a few of you from South Africa. Yeah, hi, Chris. Yeah, London today is beautiful, isn't it, Fabrice? Lovely and warm. Right. Another 30 seconds or so. So pop into the chat if you've just joined, where you're joining in from. Because I'm inviting you all to my Oasis. As you can see, there's space on the hammock for everyone for the next 25 minutes or so. Right, there we go. Welcome everyone to my Oasis. And isn't it interesting how the word welcome has well at the start of it? Which reminds us about why we're all here together, because I know some of you, I don't know everybody, but I'm hoping that the one thing we have in common is our well-being. And by the end of either today or the end of the Wellbeing Immersion week, that you'll feel like you know more of your teammates. Because after all, being human and sharing well-being, the being of being well, puts us all on the same team. We just don't always know all our teammates, right? So why the Oasis? And actually, I have really been to an Oasis before. So I found this picture this morning when I remembered. This is when I was in a desert just outside of Abu Dhabi quite a few years ago. And I actually went to an Oasis. And an Oasis for me is a place that gives us restoration, quenches our thirst. And we really have crash landed, right, in a dry, arid place. And I think a lot of us didn't really want to be visiting where we are right now, but we have. And the reason why I've done the Wellbeing Immersion is because of what clients were telling me. So a lot of us were feeling very tired, yet wired, very parched, very, I guess even a bit jaded. So my intention with the Wellbeing Immersion is to create a feel of an oasis where you can come. And the fact that you're here now or watching this recording tells me that you really are putting your well-being first. And hopefully we can join each other together to feel a little bit more nourished and soothed, so that when the 21st of June comes around, which is pretty soon, we can go into the second half of the year feeling a little bit better, a little bit more nourished and not as thirsty. So today, which is the start, is a sacred Sunday. And why did I use the word sacred? Well, because for me, there's no more valuable asset than our health, right? And the fact that you're here on a Sunday, putting yourself and your health and well-being first, tells me that you consider yourself to be sacred. Because another word for that is special or significant or blessed or fortunate. And that is wonderful. And well-being is a deep well, right? So as a theme, it's vast. And the way that I usually summarize it is we have our mental well-being that relates to our head and how we think. We have our emotional well-being, which relates to our heart and how we feel. And then we have our physical well-being, which relates to our body or our hands. And that is exactly what we're going to do at each of these sessions, including today. So over the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if you can attend the sessions live, great. If you can't, that's okay. You can watch the recordings. You can watch one or all 6. It's not a competition. Trust that whatever comes into your consciousness and what you're able to enjoy in a way that's playful, because that's important, is exactly what you need. But each session is going to have some kind of thought, so something to get you thinking. Then I'm going to give us an opportunity to all connect with our heart, with our emotional well-being. And then I'm going to ask you to pledge one thing that you're going to do with your hands. So what action are you going to take? Because for me, when all 3 of those things are aligned, our head, our heart, and our hands, we're then able to make more authentic decisions and behaviors and actually make change. Because if this whole topic about behavior change and lifestyle and health was easy, we would all be happier and healthier. But it's not easy. It's actually kind of hard. And what I've seen in my journey of doing this, so some of you know, I'm a dietitian. I qualified in 2000. After 5 years of clinical practice, I moved into workplace well-being. And since then, my joy is around helping people that are busy, stressed, and tired to feel more energized, to have a clearer mind, to have a calmer heart, to take actions that actually help us, but in a way that is practical and playful. So I also know we're very busy, which is why each session is going to be, well, slightly less than 30 minutes. I will always end on time. That means that we won't really have an opportunity to ask questions. However, I am available if you have any questions about any of the content that I share. So you can look out for a follow-up note from me each evening over the next few days, and you can reply to that email, or in the chat if you post a question. Myself and Heather will keep an eye on that, and I'll make sure that I answer that. And so, before we look at our head and our heart, because to really show up at our best, mentally and emotionally, we need to make sure that we have a strong physical foundation. And what I know when we're feeling tired, and especially in the circumstances that we are now, is that the small things that are important can easily go out that proverbial window. So I'm going to take you through a framework which some of you may have gone through with me before. And if you have, this is an opportunity to see how your score is doing. And if you haven't, I'd like you to sit back. If you've got pen and paper handy, perhaps just write down if any notes come up for you. But if not, trust that once I've asked you the 10 questions, and when I ask you to think of just one point on the Welcolator that you're going to take as your pledge for this week, that you'll know exactly which one it is. Because when we try and change too much too quickly, that's when we set ourselves up for failure as opposed to success. So the framework that I'm going to take you through is called the Welcolator. So there's that word well again. And I really love it because it makes me think of this pit of water that's helping us feel nourished and hydrated and soothed in a very parched land. So the Welcolator has 10 points. These 10 things generally, in my experience, if you have them in place, will support a good physical dimension of well-being, which will help you to show up at your best emotionally and mentally, and then also spiritually. So I haven't touched on that, but we will in the week. I'll speak about not just your head, your heart, your hands, but also the concept of hope, because hope is something that I think all of us should bask in a bit more. So this is going to be a bit of a whirlwind tour. Trust your intuition. If you answer yes to the question, I'd like you to give yourself 1 point. And if you answer no, so you don't do that most of the time, then no point. And at your own discretion, give yourself half points. All right? So the first question on the Welcolator is, have you got a strategy around the way that you feed yourself? So are you a strategic refueler? That means that you eat in a way that sustains your energy and good health. For some of us, that might be paleo, it might be keto. For me, I know that that doesn't work. I need to do a low-fat Mediterranean approach. Am I asking 100% all the time? No. But if you want to give yourself 1 point, you've got to be doing this 80% of the time. So most of the time, have you got a strategy that you put into place, even though we're remote working, even though you might be traveling again, but generally you put it in place that helps you sustain your energy and good health? Then secondly, do you eat like an artist? Now, those of you that know me well will know what this means. This is not about eating M&Ms and jelly tots and wine gums or Smarties, but it's eating nature's color produce. One of the best things you can do to boost your immunity from the inside is to make sure that you eat enough colorful foods. That means enough fruits and vegetables and salads. Enough is a minimum of 5 tennis ball portions a day. So think of your day yesterday and today, if it's towards the end of your day, and how many colors have you had? Do you think you're going to hit 5 as a minimum? And that will give you a guide, because if you didn't do it yesterday, are you doing it 80% of the time? And this number 2 is very important for good gut health. So if that's a topic that you haven't explored, and that's one thing that you take from today, is to read up maybe a blog on gut health, that could be a good place to start with improving your well-being. Then not just what you eat, but how you eat is important. I know that a lot of us can have snackcidents. We can end up having snacking amnesia because we eat when we're distracted, or we eat too quickly, or we don't savor and use our senses. And tomorrow we're going to go through a senses exercise when we go through Mindful Monday. So generally, would you say that you practice mindful eating? So do you take 15 minutes minimum to enjoy most of your meals? And do you do it not being too distracted, like all these additional screens and things like that around you? This is a quick win for energy. And we're talking about the well-being and the well of well-being and being in an oasis and soothing and hydrating ourselves. Are you well hydrated? If you're not hydrated, you could have low energy, trigger headaches, and maybe even feel hungry. And along with that is also thinking about not drinking too much of the other stuff. But today we're not going to talk about not drinking caffeine or alcohol. I'd like us just to focus on the concept of hydrating. You should have 1 glass of water for every 10 kilograms that you weigh to be well hydrated. So a glass being 250 mils. So 1 glass of water for every 10 kilograms that you weigh is a good guide. Then do you know your health numbers? Number 5. It's really important to keep track of some of these things. And now it's becoming so much more easy, right? So things like cholesterol and blood pressure and blood glucose are a minimum to check, especially when we are stressed. And it's not, are we stressed? It's how much stress we're all exposed to at the moment, because we're all feeling, I'm certainly feeling the effects of long-term uncertainty and the pressures that COVID and a global pandemic has brought. So keeping track of health numbers is key. And then, of course, you can dive deeper into this well of well-being, and you can check things like vitamin D status and other vitamins and minerals. And if you've got inflammatory markers, and I know that some of you have done genomic testing, so looking at your DNA, which is becoming more and more cost-effective and easy to do. Then number 6, do you generally get enough sleep to wake up feeling rested on most days of the week? So sleep deprivation is an epidemic of note. And I'm hoping that you can answer yes to that. So 80% of the time, do you get enough sleep? And if not, I've got resources. I can help. Just reach out to me, please. And then number 7, have you got some kind of mindfulness practice, even if it is just 5 minutes of sitting still on most days of the week where you don't have any external stimulus in the form of digital devices or news or social media coming in? We need this, and I'm going to tomorrow show you some really funky brain scans of what happens to your brain when you're on back-to-back meetings the whole day and you don't actually stop and pause. So stopping, and mindfulness is a way of stopping and bringing us into the moment, is an incredibly important strategy or tool to have in your well-being toolkit. Then do you activate and move? So during your workday, like at the moment I'm standing, but I'm also able to sit because I have a sit-stand desk. You don't need a sit-stand desk. I worked off an ironing board for 8 months in the beginning of lockdown. So are you moving during your day, not just sitting still for long periods of time? Because the way we move, the way we stand, actually can change our state. So really important to consider that if you're feeling tired, maybe you could actually just stretch a bit more. And I'll talk a bit about on Tuesday, how do you stay turned on and tuned in during a long work day. And then we should be exercising, right? Because it produce endorphins, which are good for us. They're natural antidepressants, and it produces BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factor for the brain. And we know that exercise increases blood circulation, helps us breathe. It helps release pent-up emotions, helps us release cortisol. What's key is to do exercise that you enjoy. So maybe even bringing in a bit of playfulness. So, not just forcing yourself to potentially go to the gym. The gym is good, but so too is just like 10 or 15 minutes of crazy wild dancing in the kitchen with your kids or your pets, So doing exercise regularly that you enjoy. And then lastly, do you know when your body is triggered by stress? So often, not often, always, the body responds to stress before the conscious mind does. So for instance, I clench my jaw. Some of us lean forward, we may frown, we hunch our shoulders, maybe we constrict our glutes, our breathing changes. And so some of the exercises in the week that I'm going to take you through will include some breathing awareness and self-regulation techniques. So if you were to give yourself a score on the Welcolator today, and if you're happy to share your score out of 10, if you give yourself 1 point for every yes, would you pop your score on the Welcolator into the chat? I'd love to see what the Welcolator scores are looking like today. What is your Welcolator score out of 10? Thank you, Stuart. 8. Heather, thank you for that. There's no good and bad. There's just really good information. Linda, 6.5. I like that you negotiated a half for yourself. Wonderful. So we have quite a range coming through. We've got lower ends, say 2. We've got 8 so far as an upper end. Thank you, Philip. Thanks, Fabrice. So the ideal score would be 10, right? Because I didn't ask you to be doing these things 100% of the time, all the time, but most of the time, could you be doing those things? Now, I know, even if you have a score of 8, getting to 10 can seem like quite a leap. And so it's so important to start with what's necessary and possible. And then over time, if we're consistent rather than intense, so consistency over intensity, we then potentially look back and realize that we're doing what felt like the impossible. So for this week, I would like you to have one action, something you can do with your hands, now that we've used your head, and in a moment we're going to engage the heart, of the Welcolator. So what on the Welcolator that you answered no to, or perhaps gave yourself half a point for, do you feel motivated to work on through this week? So for the next 5 days, which points on the Welcolator are you going to look at and keep in your conscious mind? And I'm going to ask you to make the pledge a positive one. So rather make it something that you add in rather than take away. So by that I mean, instead of saying, well, I'm going to cut out my screen time before I go to bed, or I'm going to cut out coffee in the afternoon, I'd rather you say, I'm going to add in a glass of water with every cup of coffee. And that becomes the goal. Or I'm going to add in 10 minutes of mindfulness before I go to sleep. There's something quite powerful about adding something in that makes it feel like we're moving more towards something. So it's more of the carrot as opposed to the stick approach of moving away from pain. I mean, both motivate and change behavior. But perhaps for this week, for this Wellbeing Immersion, which is about coming to an oasis and feeling refreshed and rejuvenated, we could keep it positive. So think through a pledge or an area of your well-being that's come up as we've gone through the Welcolator. And then I'd like you to really be specific on what is the action you are going to take with your hands. So is it measurable? Can you say where and when you're going to do it? And maybe if you're happy to share in the chat, and yes, Stuart, I will put up the questions again. Thank you for that. Where have they gone? Oh, there they are. There we go. Share. Wait. Let me stop sharing that. So as a reminder, here is the Welcolator, and then I'd like you to pop it into the chat. What is the specific thing that you're going to do over this week? Is it going to be something around food? So strategic refueling, looking after your gut health, eating like an artist. Is it going to be about the way that you eat? So eating more mindfully. Will it be around bringing in hydration? Will it be around committing to doing some kind of test around your health numbers? Is it going to be related to sleep or mindfulness? Will it be around how you move during your workday or how you approach intentional exercise? Or will it be around potentially knowing when your body is responding to stress and having techniques like breathing to help with that? So pop into the chat a clear, tiny, make this super easy. I'd like everyone here on Friday, when we do the finale together, to look back on the week and almost with a sense of 100% guarantee, you've achieved this goal. So 1 glass of water over and above what you're drinking is enough. Don't go to 8 glasses of water if you're currently not drinking that. Going to bed 10 minutes earlier, or giving yourself 5 minutes in the morning with a cup of tea before you engage with Facebook or Instagram. Like really teeny tiny changes. There's so much science in the behavioral science space to prove that the tinier a habit is, the more likely we are to put it into place. So those of you that are happy to, in the chat, would you put in, what is your pledge for this week? Let me open up the chat. Thank you, Linda. That's specific. I love that. 5 minutes of mindfulness every lunchtime. Excellent. 10 minutes of mindfulness. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Eleanor. Okay. Power down by 10. Lovely. Okay, Fabrice, great. Drink more water, but you know how much, right? We've got to quantify it, make it specific and measurable. Because if we don't prioritize these small new habits, they cannot become something that we practice. And what we practice becomes our default. And what we're trying to do around well-being is to develop habits that we start doing on automatic pilot almost. We don't have to think about them too much. Because if we don't, then other people's agendas and Teams meetings and Zooms and our business calendars and the pressures of life and the news and social media will prioritize our life. So we need to commit to doing this. And if this was easy, as I said at the start, we would all be doing this. But it isn't. So one way that you can do, you've made a pledge now in public to me, but I know that by Sunday evening and Monday morning, potentially, there'll be other things in your mind and in your heart. So how do you set yourself up for success? Well, so that's a great picture of a well. Has anybody been there before? The Fountains of Trevi. I was there when I was 19, and I've always said I'd like to go back. But if we throw, so you might have thrown a coin into a well before and made a wish. And wishes are cool, right? But wishes aren't going to change your behavior. Like wishing and hoping on its own is not a strategy. We need to be clear on what it is that we're going to do and then nudge ourselves to remember to do it. So I'm going to share with you 6 things and I want you to choose one. One of these, I mean, if you want to do all 6, amazing. But I'd like you to right now look around the room you're in and find a tangible reminder. So something that you can use to remind you about your pledge. So I knew I was going to do this. I had something. This is a coaster that says Chief Effervescent Officer. I want to stay effervescent this week so that every time we check in with each other, I'm able to have enough bubbly coming up for you to feel that contagious effervescence from. So find something that you can put now at your desk or wherever you are. I know this might not be easy for those of you that are dialing in from somewhere outside. So maybe you can make a mental note to find something tangible later. Or you could set an alarm on your phone right now to remind you to do the mindfulness at midday or to take a deep breath or to power down at the end of your day. So set an alarm. I use alarms on my phone a lot to remind me about things, especially in the beginning of creating a new habit. Maybe write a note right now or take post-it notes and stick it on your bathroom mirror or in the kitchen. I often put notes above my kettle because I'm always making cups of tea or coffee. Send a message to a friend and say, look, I'm committing to this immersion, this well-being thing this week, and this is my pledge. Please hold me accountable. You could also write, those of you that have lipstick, or go find somebody else's lipstick and write on a bathroom mirror. That's a cool thing because it just wipes off, by the way. And then when you're brushing your teeth twice a day, you'll remember that. Or you could stick a note on your bedside table, or put the object that you find at your bedside table, so that first thing in the morning and last thing at night, you remember what it is you're pledging to do. I'd like to see a show of hands if you're committing to doing at least one of these things to remind you of the pledge that you've committed to. Okay, outstanding, outstanding. This really, really does work. And now what I'd like to do, before I end off with a few words from one of my favorite poets, I'd like to give you an opportunity to connect with your heart. So for the next 2 minutes, if you are able to, I'd like you to soften your gaze so that you're not distracted by the beautiful faces and what's happening on the screen, either on your phone or your laptop, wherever you may be. If you are comfortable to do so, you can close your eyes. And I'd like you to imagine that you're sitting with me right here at a place that you feel is an oasis. And I'd like you to bring your awareness to your heart, so to the center of your chest. And notice your breath. There's no need to change your breath. I'd like you to just notice, how is your breath feeling as you inhale? And how does it feel as you exhale? And as you exhale, what would it be like to be 1% more relaxed? Could you drop your shoulders a little bit towards the ground, or release any tension in your jaw or your neck? And then I'd like you to think of your personal pledge. And imagine it is Friday afternoon, Friday evening. You look back on the week and you have done your pledge. And you're feeling good. You have a sense of appreciation and gratitude. Perhaps even some joy. And then take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, to gently move your hands, your fingers, your toes, to open your eyes if they were closed. And celebrate in advance for the fact that you have done exactly what you said you would do. And knowing that this is a journey, so we're here together, I look really forward to seeing you every day if you can make it live. Tomorrow will be Mindful Monday. And if you can't make tomorrow, perhaps Tuesday, or look out for the recording. But to end off, I'd like to share and celebrate you for being here today. Because you are not leaving, you are simply, we are all arriving. So this is from The Journey by David White. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. You've got that one line now, your one-line pledge from the Welcolator. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that first bright and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. You've connected with your heart. And may you find the freedom and the space to fulfill your wish and your pledge. And know that you are not alone, you are definitely not leaving. Even as the light fades quickly, you are arriving. Thank you to you all for arriving today, for putting yourself first, for making your health and well-being sacred, and for joining me in my oasis. And I look forward to hearing from you. Look out for the emails. Please come back and join me this week. And may we celebrate on Friday and change, because we change most when we feel good, not bad. So thank you to everybody that was here, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Feel free to unmute and say goodbye.
Bye, Celine.
Bye.
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 Bye. Cheers, Chris. Bye, Philip.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Celine. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye,
Celine.
Anthony.
Thank you, Celine. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, dear Linda. Thank you for being
Thanks.
here. Bye. Bye, Francis. Bye, Gary.
Thank you, Celine.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheerio. Bye. Thank you, Rolly.